The photos on my phone screen blur through my tears. Mom, radiant and healthy, raising a wine glass at a rooftop restaurant in Rome. Cindy, posing with designer shopping bags outside a Prada boutique. My hands shake as I scroll through image after image, each one a dagger through my chest. $35,000. That's what their lies cost me. That's what I paid for their European vacation while believing my mother was dying in an Arizona hospital. The call came 3 months ago, my mother's voice trembling with what I now know was practiced desperation. Jessica, honey, I need surgery. My knee, they say I could be disabled without it. I remember clutching the phone, my father's final moments flooding back. The beeping machines, his labored breathing, my helpless vigil by his bedside. I couldn't let that happen to anyone else. Not if I could prevent it. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me start from the beginning, from the moment my childhood ended, and I learned what conditional love really means. I was 7 when my parents divorced, just Jessica Thompson living in our cozy house with Mom and Dad. Those early years shimmer in my memory like golden photographs. Family dinners where Dad would make me laugh until milk came out my nose. Weekend trips to the park where Mom would push me so high on the swings I felt like I could touch clouds. Bedtime stories read in Dad's deep, comforting voice while Mom stroked my hair. Everything changed when they split. Dad moved out, but left us the house, made sure we were financially secure. The alimony was generous enough that Mom didn't need to work, which seemed to suit her perfectly. She'd spend her days watching talk shows and shopping online, occasionally sighing about how hard single motherhood was while painting her nails. A year later, Steve entered our lives like a storm cloud I didn't see coming. At first, he brought candy and tried to make me laugh with silly jokes. Mom would light up whenever he visited, her voice becoming higher and more animated. I was hungry for any scrap of happiness after the divorce, so I welcomed his presence. They married quickly, and soon my half-sister Cindy was born. That's when Steve's mask began to slip. The candy stopped coming. The jokes turned into pointed comments when Mom wasn't around. "Don't you miss your dad, Jessica? Wouldn't you rather live with him?" His eyes would narrow when he looked at me, as if I were an unwanted piece of furniture he was calculating how to dispose of. I realize now that Steve saw me as a financial burden, a reminder of Mom's past that came with monthly child support payments. In his mind, I was competition for resources that should go to his biological daughter. Mom, desperate to please her new husband and secure her comfortable lifestyle, was all too willing to listen. The conversation that shattered my world happened when I was 12. I'd gotten up for a glass of water, my bare feet silent on the hardwood floor when I heard their voices from the kitchen. "Look, Steve, I got that promotion at work," Steve was saying, his voice low but firm. "My salary's nearly doubled. You won't need to work or Jessica's child support. But that money helps," Mom replied, though her tone was already wavering. "It pays for a lot. Come on, Sarah. We both know Jessica would be better off with her father. Plus, wouldn't it be nice to just focus on our family?" On Cindy? The way she didn't hesitate before agreeing still haunts me. "You're right. I'll call Mark tomorrow about taking Jessica." I stood there in the darkness, my hand pressed against my mouth to keep from making a sound. The glass of water I'd wanted lay forgotten as I processed what I'd just heard. My own mother was trading me away, because she didn't need my father's money anymore. In that moment, I learned that to her, I was just another monthly payment, another bill to be optimized away. Looking back now, I wonder if Mom's own upbringing shaped her. Grandma once mentioned that Mom's parents had divorced messily when she was young, leaving her bouncing between relatives who saw her as a burden. Maybe she learned early that love was transactional, that family was about convenience rather than commitment. But understanding her doesn't excuse what she did to me. When Mom told me I'd be moving in with Dad, she acted like she was doing me a favor. "You'll have more opportunities there," she said, not meeting my eyes, as if she wasn't just getting rid of me because I'd become financially inconvenient. Dad welcomed me with open arms, no questions asked. He'd already set up a room for me in his apartment, painted it my favorite shade of lavender, and filled the bookshelf with all the fantasy series I loved reading. That first night at his place, he sat on the edge of my bed and said, "I'm sorry things worked out this way, kiddo, but I want you to know something. You'll always have a home with me, always." Those words became my anchor in the years that followed. While Mom busied herself with her new family, barely checking in except for obligatory holiday calls that felt more like business transactions, Dad was there for everything. School plays where he'd cheer louder than any other parent. Parent-teacher conferences where he'd beam with pride at my grades. The time I got my heart broken by my first crush, and he held me while I cried, offering tissues and terrible jokes until I laughed despite myself. I think Dad felt guilty about the divorce, about not fighting harder for custody initially. He threw himself into being the best father he could be, as if he could somehow make up for the years of confusion and abandonment I'd experienced. He made sure I got into a good private school, encouraged my interests in literature and debate, never made me feel like I was a burden or an expense to be calculated. When college applications came around, he sat with me night after night, reviewing essays and helping me research schools. His eyes would light up whenever I showed him a particularly well-crafted paragraph or a scholarship opportunity I'd discovered. "You're going places, kiddo," he'd say, ruffling my hair. "The world better get ready for Jessica Thompson." I still remember the day my acceptance letter from Princeton arrived. Dad's eyes welled up as he read it, his voice thick with emotion. "You did it, kiddo," he said, pulling me into a bear hug that smelled of his cologne and coffee. "I always knew you would." College was expensive, but Dad never complained. "Your education is my priority," he'd say whenever I brought up the cost, waving off my concerns with the same determination he brought to everything involving my welfare. Those 4 years flew by in a blur of late-night study sessions, campus activities, and Sunday dinners with Dad where he'd ask about my professors and listen intently to my dreams of working in consulting. Before I knew it, I was graduating with honors and had landed a job at one of the top consulting firms in the city. I rented a nice apartment downtown, not too far from Dad's place. We maintained our Sunday dinner tradition, just like we had since I was 12. He'd ask about my work, and I'd tell him about my latest projects, the clients I was helping, the business strategies I was developing. Sometimes we'd just sit in comfortable silence, watching old movies like Casablanca and The Princess Bride that we'd discovered together when I was in high school. Everything was perfect until it wasn't. The diagnosis came out of nowhere: stage 4 pancreatic cancer. 6 months, the doctor said, though his optimism felt hollow. Dad only made it 4. I was 28 when I lost him, and the world suddenly felt impossibly large and empty. The last few weeks were brutal. I took leave from work to be with him in the hospital, watching this strong man who'd been my rock slowly fade away. One night near the end, his hand felt paper-thin in mine when he squeezed it and whispered, "You were the best thing in my life, Jessica." Never forget that. After he passed, I discovered he'd left me everything: his beautiful apartment in the city center and $700,000 in his accounts. I couldn't even think about the money. I just missed my dad with an ache that felt like it would never heal. The apartment still smelled like him, still had his coffee mug in the sink, his reading glasses folded on the bedside table. A month after the funeral, my phone rang with a number I almost didn't recognize. I almost dropped it when I saw Mom on the caller ID. Jessica. Her voice was hesitant, rusty from years of disuse. "I heard about your father. I'm so sorry. I hadn't heard from her in years." "Thanks," I managed to say, my throat tight. "I know this might not be the best time, but Steve passed away too recently." "Heart attack." She paused, and I could hear her taking a shaky breath. "I've been thinking about you a lot. Maybe it was grief making me vulnerable, or maybe I just wanted to believe people could change, but I found myself agreeing to meet her for coffee." One coffee turned into regular visits. I met Cindy properly for the first time since she was a baby. She was 21 now, bouncing between job interviews and seemingly directionless, with the same restless energy Mom had always possessed. Mom was working as a cashier at the local supermarket, a far cry from her days of not needing to work. Her hands looked older, rougher, and there were lines around her eyes I didn't remember. For a moment, I felt a flicker of sympathy. Maybe losing Steve had taught her something about loss, about the value of real relationships. I started visiting them several times a month. I told them about my travels, my weekend trips to different states, my vacations in Europe that Dad had encouraged me to take. "See the world," he'd said. "Make memories." I always brought them gifts when I visited: designer clothes for Cindy, nice perfumes for Mom, little luxuries they couldn't afford themselves. It felt good in a way, being able to share my success with them, to see their faces light up when I pulled out something special from my suitcase. It became a routine I couldn't break. I couldn't show up at Mom's place empty-handed, even if I was just dropping by for a quick coffee. The guilt would eat at me if I didn't bring something. The local mall became my regular stop before any visit. Cindy especially loved the clothes I brought back from Europe, her eyes lighting up like a child's on Christmas morning every time I pulled out something from my suitcase. "Oh my God, Jess, is this really from that boutique in Paris?" she'd squeal, holding up whatever designer piece I'd brought her, turning it this way and that in the light. At first, I enjoyed their reactions. Maybe I was trying to buy the affection I'd never gotten as a kid, trying to fill the void that Mom's abandonment had left with material gestures. I'd carefully pick out things I thought they'd like: a cashmere sweater for Mom in a shade that complemented her eyes, a leather handbag for Cindy that matched her style. Then one day, I decided to ask what they actually wanted instead of guessing. "Oh, I couldn't possibly," Mom started, looking down at her coffee cup with false modesty. "Maybe just some new towels from Target." Cindy was equally hesitant at first. Maybe some drugstore makeup. But something shifted after that conversation, like I'd opened a door that could never be closed again. The requests started getting bigger, more frequent. Mom went from asking for towels to texting me entire shopping lists. "Hey honey," one text read, "when you're in Milan next month, could you pick up that Gucci bag we saw online? And Cindy really needs new winter clothes. Prada would be nice. Oh, and we're running low on groceries." I stared at my phone, my stomach turning. The lists kept getting longer, more demanding. It wasn't just luxury items anymore. They expected me to cover their basic expenses too, as if I were some sort of personal ATM rather than a daughter who'd been trying to rebuild a relationship. One evening, after receiving yet another lengthy list that included everything from designer shoes to rent money, I decided enough was enough. I drove to their house, my hands gripping the steering wheel tighter than necessary, determined to have a serious conversation. "Mom, Cindy, we need to talk about these requests," I said, sitting at their kitchen table. The same table where I'd eaten countless childhood dinners, back when things were simpler. Mom shifted uncomfortably in her chair, her fingers fidgeting with her coffee cup. "What do you mean, sweetie?" "The lists. The constant asking for things. It's getting out of hand." "Oh, come on." Cindy rolled her eyes, with the casual dismissiveness of someone who'd never worked for anything. "It's not like you can't afford it. You're loaded." "That's not the point," I replied, trying to keep my voice steady despite the anger building in my chest. "Yes, I have money, but what?" Cindy interrupted, her voice rising. "You're just going to hoard it all while your family struggles? You've got that fancy apartment, you're always traveling, and you can't help out your poor family? You're rich. Your dad left you all that money, and you're being selfish." I felt my face getting hot, the familiar burn of injustice and anger. Selfish? That money came from the parent who actually wanted me, the one who didn't trade me away when I became inconvenient. The room went dead silent. Mom's face had gone pale, and even Cindy looked taken aback by the venom in my voice. "It's my money," I said finally, standing up, "and I'll decide how to spend it." "Real nice, Jess," Cindy spat, recovering her composure. "Real nice way to treat your family." I walked out, slamming the door behind me, my heart pounding with a mixture of anger and relief. For the next month, my phone stayed silent. No calls, no texts, no lists of demands. Part of me was hurt, but another part felt relieved. The constant pressure to provide, to prove my love through material gifts, had lifted. I could travel without guilt, eat dinner without wondering what they needed, sleep without checking my phone for new demands. After a month of silence, my phone rang. It was Mom. "Jessica, honey, could you come over? I need to talk to you about something important." There was something in her voice that made me worry despite our recent argument. A tremor of genuine fear that cut through my anger. I found myself driving to her house that afternoon, my mind racing with possibilities. Mom was sitting at the kitchen table when I arrived, looking more subdued than usual. Cindy hovered nearby, her face uncharacteristically serious, none of her usual eye-rolling attitude in evidence. "What's going on?" I asked, taking a seat across from them. Mom reached across the table and grabbed my hand with both of hers. Her skin felt cold, papery. "I've been to see a doctor, Jessica. It's my knee. They say I need surgery right away." A total knee replacement. My stomach dropped, all my anger momentarily forgotten. How serious is it? Very, she said, her voice trembling in a way I hadn't heard since I was a child. The doctor says if I don't get it done soon, I could end up disabled. I wouldn't be able to work anymore. I thought about Dad, how quickly things had gone downhill after his diagnosis. How helpless I'd felt watching him suffer, knowing that all my money couldn't buy him more time. The guilt of those final weeks washed over me again. Could I have done more, found better doctors, tried experimental treatments? The thing is, Mom continued, glancing at Cindy, the best specialist for this kind of surgery is in Arizona. They've got a spot open, but, she paused, her voice catching. The whole thing, surgery, hospital stay, rehabilitation, it's going to cost $70,000. 70,000. I repeated the number in my mind, thinking of Dad's medical bills, remembering how quickly hope could turn to desperation in hospital corridors. I know it's a lot, Mom said quickly, but Cindy will come with me to help during recovery. The whole treatment and rehabilitation will take about a month. I sat there, memories of Dad's last months flooding back. The hospital corridors that smelled of disinfectant and despair. The beeping machines that marked time in increments of suffering. The helpless feeling of watching someone you love slip away, knowing that all your resources, all your success, couldn't save them. I couldn't let that happen again, not if I could prevent it. I'll help, I heard myself say, the words coming from some deep well of family obligation and guilt. But I can't give you the whole amount at once. I can give you half now, 35,000, and the other half when I get the hospital bill. Mom's face darkened, her expression shifting in a way that should have warned me. But I need all of it up front. The hospital, Mom, I interrupted, holding up my hand. That's all I can do right now. I need to be smart about this. She started to protest, but Cindy put a hand on her shoulder. They exchanged a look I couldn't quite read, some silent communication that made my skin crawl even though I couldn't interpret it. Actually, Mom said, her tone shifting to something more conciliatory, let me call the hospital. Maybe I can arrange to pay in 2 installments. She left the room with her phone, and I heard her voice drifting from the hallway, though I couldn't make out the words. A few minutes later, she returned looking relieved, her whole demeanor brighter. They said it would be fine, she announced with a smile that seemed almost too eager. We can pay half now and half after the surgery. The next few days were a blur of preparations. I transferred the first $35,000 to Mom's account, watching my bank balance drop with a familiar pang of anxiety. Money had always felt like security to me, a buffer against the kind of abandonment I'd experienced as a child. But family was supposed to matter more than money, wasn't it? A week later, I helped them pack their bags and drove them to the airport. Mom looked nervous, fidgeting with her purse straps and checking her boarding pass multiple times. Cindy seemed excited, chattering about never having been to Arizona before. I hugged them both goodbye, promising to call every day to check on the surgery and recovery. A few days after Mom and Cindy left, I was sitting in my home office reviewing some work documents when my phone buzzed. The name that popped up made me smile. Rachel Martinez, my best friend from elementary school. We'd known each other since we were 6, back when the world seemed simple and friendship meant sharing juice boxes and defending each other from playground bullies. After I moved in with Dad, we'd mostly kept in touch through social media, but recently we'd started meeting up again for coffee, catching up on lost time, and rediscovering the easy camaraderie of childhood. "Hey Rach, what's up?" Jess, there was something odd in her voice, a careful tension that immediately put me on alert. "I need to ask you something weird. Did you know your mom and sister are in Europe?" I laughed, thinking it was some kind of joke. "What?" "No, they're in Arizona. Mom's having knee surgery." "Yeah, that's what I thought too, but—" Rachel paused, and I could hear her taking a deep breath. "My sister just showed me these photos that Cindy sent her. They're definitely not in Arizona." My phone pinged with incoming messages. With each new photo that loaded, I felt like I was being punched in the gut. There was Mom, looking perfectly healthy and radiant, posing in front of the Trevi fountain with a massive grin on her face. Cindy, taking selfies outside designer boutiques in Rome, her arms laden with shopping bags from stores I recognized from my own European trips. Mom and Cindy with two other women I recognized as Mom's sister Angela and her daughter Emma, all of them lounging by a private pool at what looked like an expensive villa, cocktails in hand, and not a care in the world. Each photo was time-stamped with yesterday's date, clearly visible in the corner. "There's more," Rachel said hesitantly, her voice gentle as if she understood she was delivering devastating news. "My sister said Cindy's been bragging about the whole thing. Apparently, your mom bought one-way tickets for everyone, herself, Cindy, your Aunt Angela, and your cousin Emma. They've rented some luxury villa for a month, and they're shopping at all these high-end stores and eating at fancy restaurants." I sat there, staring at a photo of my mother, my supposedly surgery-bound mother, sipping wine at a rooftop restaurant overlooking the Italian countryside. The $35,000 I'd given her for medical expenses was being spent on a European vacation for 4 people. Not just Mom and Cindy, but extended family members who had apparently been in on the scam from the beginning. I spent that night tossing and turning, looking at those photos over and over again. How could they do this? How could they lie so brazenly, taking advantage of my concern about Mom's health? They'd played me, using my memories of Dad's illness, my guilt about not being able to save him, to manipulate me into funding their European adventure. The betrayal felt even deeper than Mom's original abandonment when I was 12. At least then, she'd been honest about her priorities. This time, she'd used my love, my grief, my desperate desire to not lose another parent as weapons against me. The next morning, I called Mom, my hands shaking so hard I could barely hold the phone. "How did the surgery go?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady despite the rage building in my chest. "Oh, it went great," she said with casual enthusiasm, as if she were discussing the weather. "The doctor said everything went perfectly. I'm already starting rehabilitation." I gripped the edge of my desk, knuckles turning white. The casual way she lied made me feel physically sick. "That's wonderful," I said, my voice dripping with barely contained sarcasm. "I'd love to talk to your doctor about the procedure. Could you put him on?" There was a slight pause, a moment where I could almost hear her scrambling for an excuse. "Oh, he's very busy right now, sweetie. Besides, there's no need to bother him. Look, I need to go," she continued quickly. "They're calling me for physical therapy." The line went dead before I could respond. I sat there staring at my phone, a wave of memories washing over me. Mom giving me away at 12 because she didn't need Dad's money anymore. Mom only reaching out after Dad died and left me his estate. Mom sending me shopping lists, expecting me to fund her lifestyle without question. And now this, the ultimate betrayal, using my father's death and my grief to scam money from me for a vacation. I decided to play along with their charade, calling Mom every day to check on her recovery. Each time, she had a new excuse ready for why I couldn't speak to the doctor. The doctor's in surgery right now, honey. He's at a conference today. He's seeing other patients. He's off duty until tomorrow. It was like watching a bad play where the actor keeps forgetting their lines and making up new ones on the spot. I started keeping a list of her excuses, partly out of anger, partly because I couldn't believe how ridiculous they were getting. During one call, I decided to test her further. "Mom," I said, trying to sound concerned, "maybe we could do a video chat? I just want to see how you're doing, make sure you're comfortable in the hospital." There was a rustling sound on the other end, probably her covering the phone while she consulted with Cindy about what to say next. "Oh, sweetie, I look terrible right now," she finally replied. "All swollen and bruised. Plus, the hospital Wi-Fi is awful. Keeps cutting out." I could hear Italian pop music playing faintly in the background, along with what sounded like people laughing and chatting in a language that definitely wasn't English. "Really?" I pressed, unable to keep the skepticism out of my voice. "That's strange for a top medical facility." "Well, you know how these things are," she said quickly. "Listen, I need to go. Time for my physical therapy." The next time I called, I decided to try a different approach. "Mom, just send me the hospital bill directly. I'll wire the remaining $35,000 to their account." "No," she said, too quickly, too forcefully. Then, softening her tone, "I mean, that's not necessary. Just send it to my account, and I'll handle everything with the hospital. They know me here now." After that conversation, I stopped calling. Let them sweat a little, I thought. Let them wonder if the money was coming. Sure enough, a week later, Mom's number appeared on my phone. I watched it ring, imagining her growing panic as she realized the money might not be coming after all. Then came the text. "Jessica, the hospital is demanding payment immediately. They're threatening to send the bill to collections. Please, we need the money right away." I took my time responding, waiting several hours before typing back, "No problem. Just forward me the bill from the hospital, and I'll take care of it immediately." Silence followed. 3 days of it. I knew they were scrambling, trying to figure out what to do next. Then an email arrived in my inbox with the subject line "Urgent. Hospital bill attached." I opened the attachment and almost laughed out loud. They hadn't even tried to make it look legitimate. The letterhead was blurry, clearly copied from some other document and poorly pasted together. The date was from 6 months ago. The hospital's address showed California instead of Arizona. Most tellingly, the payment details section listed Mom's personal bank account instead of any medical facility. I stared at this pathetic attempt at forgery, feeling a mix of amusement and deep sadness. This was what our relationship had come to: amateur hour fraud attempts and increasingly desperate lies. I decided to have a little fun with them. I photographed a stack of $100 bills I'd withdrawn earlier that week, arranging them fan-like on my desk for maximum visual impact. "Got your bill," I wrote back, attaching the photos. Sending you money. My finger hovered over the send button for just a moment before I pressed it. Game on, Mom, I thought. Let's see what story you come up with next. My phone rang less than an hour after I sent the photos. Mom's name flashed on the screen, and I took a deep breath before answering. Jessica. Her voice was shrill, panicked. What's going on? Where's the rest of the money? We've been waiting. Drop the act, Mom. I cut her off, my voice ice cold. I know exactly where you are, and it's not in any hospital. What are you talking about? You're in Italy, at a villa, shopping at designer stores and eating at expensive restaurants with Cindy, Aunt Angela, and Emma. The line went silent for a moment. I could almost hear her mind racing, trying to figure out how to spin this new development. How did you? She started. Cindy sent photos to Rachel's sister, who showed them to Rachel, who then sent them to me, I said, each word deliberate and sharp. Did you really think I wouldn't find out? I've seen everything. The villa, the shopping trips, all of it. You used my father's death, used my grief and guilt about not being able to save him, to scam me out of money for a vacation. Another pause, then her voice changed completely. The fake concern disappeared, replaced by defensive anger. Fine. Yes, we're in Italy, she snapped. I knew you'd never give us money for a vacation. But why shouldn't we get to travel too? You're always going somewhere. Paris, London, New York. Meanwhile, Cindy and I can barely afford groceries. That's not fair. Not fair? My voice was shaking now, years of suppressed anger finally finding their outlet. Not fair is being 12 years old and hearing your mother trade you away because she didn't need your father's money anymore. Not fair is having that same mother show up 16 years later, not because she misses you, but because your father died and left you money. We can talk about all that later, she said quickly, clearly uncomfortable with the direction the conversation was taking. Right now, we have a serious problem. We don't have money for tickets home, and we still need to pay the villa rental. Everyone needs to get back to work. We can't lose our jobs. Please, Jessica, we need that other $35,000. In that moment, I finally saw everything clearly. Nothing had changed. She was still the same woman who'd given me away when I became financially inconvenient. Only now, she wanted me back, or rather, she wanted my money back. That's your problem, not mine, I said flatly. Goodbye, Mom. I hung up and immediately blocked her number. Then I went through every social media platform, every messaging app, every possible way they could reach me, and blocked them all. Mom, Cindy, Aunt Angela, everyone involved in this elaborate scheme. Sitting there in the silence of my apartment, the apartment Dad left me, I felt something shift inside me. The last lingering hope that my mother might actually care about me, might actually want a relationship with her daughter rather than her daughter's money, finally died. 2 weeks after I blocked everyone, my grandmother called. I almost didn't answer, but Grandma had always been different from Mom, more honest, more genuine, someone who loved without conditions. Jessica, honey, she said, her voice worried. Your mother called me. She says she needs $15,000 urgently. I don't have that kind of money, but I thought maybe you. Grandma, I said gently, let me tell you what really happened. I told her everything, the fake surgery, the Italian vacation, the forged hospital bill, the elaborate scam to get my money. With each detail, I heard her sighs getting heavier. "Oh, Jessica," she said finally, her voice heavy with disappointment. "I'm so sorry. I had no idea Sarah would do something like this." "Don't worry about them, Grandma," I assured her. "They got themselves into this mess. They can get themselves out." As it turned out, I didn't have to wait long to find out how they managed to extract themselves from their European predicament. Rachel called me a few days later. "Have you seen what Cindy's doing on social media?" she asked. I hadn't, since I'd blocked them everywhere. Rachel proceeded to fill me in. "She's running this fundraiser, claiming her wealthy sister abandoned them in Italy without money to get home. She's painting you as this heartless rich person who left her poor family stranded in a foreign country." I felt a familiar surge of anger, but this time it was mixed with something else, amusement. "How's that working out for them?" I asked. "Well," Rachel said, and I could hear the smile in her voice, "they spent almost 2 weeks trying to raise the money. They had to sell all those designer clothes and bags they bought. Apparently, the villa owner was threatening to call the police because they couldn't pay the rent. And get this, they all nearly lost their jobs because they stayed way longer than their approved vacation time." I shook my head, thinking about how their grand European adventure had backfired spectacularly. The image of them desperately trying to sell their designer purchases in Italian consignment shops filled me with a bitter satisfaction. A month later, Grandma called again with an update. "They're finally back," she said, her voice tired. "But Jessica, it's a mess. Your Aunt Angela isn't speaking to your mother anymore. Apparently, Sarah demanded she help pay for the trip after everything fell apart, and they had a terrible fight. Angela accused Sarah of dragging her family into this scheme under false pretenses. And I had to tell Sarah I couldn't give her money for tickets home. She actually accused me of choosing you over her." I thought about Aunt Angela, remembering her as someone who'd always seemed more grounded than Mom. She probably went into this thinking it was a legitimate family emergency, only to discover she'd been dragged into an elaborate fraud. The fallout was destroying relationships that had taken decades to build. "I'm sorry you got dragged into this, Grandma." "Don't be, sweetheart," she replied firmly. "Sometimes people need to face the consequences of their actions. I raised Sarah better than this." After we hung up, I walked to the window of my apartment, Dad's apartment, and looked out over the city. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink that reminded me of the Italian postcards I'd once sent Dad from my own travels. On my desk, a stack of travel brochures lay waiting. I was planning my next trip, this time to Greece, to see the ancient ruins Dad had always wanted to visit but never got the chance to. The old me might have felt guilty about traveling while Mom and Cindy struggled with the aftermath of their failed scheme. The old me might have invited them along, tried one more time to build the relationship I'd always wanted with them. But that version of me was gone, replaced by someone stronger, someone who finally understood that some relationships aren't worth saving. Dad's last words to me in the hospital echoed in my mind. "You were the best thing in my life, Jessica. Never forget that." I hadn't forgotten. And I finally understood that I'd been lucky to have had one parent who truly loved me, who put me first, who taught me my own worth. Mom and Cindy could keep their schemes and manipulations, their victim narratives, and their desperate attempts to extract money from anyone gullible enough to believe them. I had something more valuable than money. I had Dad's love, his legacy, and most importantly, my self-respect. These days, my life is peaceful in a way it never was when I was trying to rebuild a relationship with Mom and Cindy. I travel when I want, work hard at my job that I genuinely love, and spend time with friends who value me for who I am, not what I can give them. Rachel and I have grown closer than ever, bonded by shared memories of childhood and the mutual understanding that real family isn't always about blood. Sometimes I hear bits of news about Mom and Cindy through Grandma, though she's careful not to burden me with too many details. They're still struggling, still playing victims, still looking for their next mark. Cindy apparently moved back in with Mom after losing her job over the extended vacation. They're sharing a one-bedroom apartment now, their relationship strained by the constant financial pressure and the lingering resentment over their Italian fiasco. But their drama doesn't touch me anymore. I've learned to build walls where I need them, to protect the peace Dad fought so hard to give me. On Sunday evenings, I still set two places at my dinner table, one for me and one for Dad's memory. I tell him about my week, about the places I've been, and the things I've learned. Sometimes I can almost hear his voice encouraging me, reminding me that I deserve love that doesn't come with conditions or price tags. The money he left me sits in carefully managed investments, growing slowly but steadily. I use it wisely, for travel that enriches my soul, for education that challenges my mind, for experiences that would make him proud. I donate regularly to children's charities, especially organizations that help kids navigate difficult family situations. Dad would have liked that. I've learned that family isn't about blood or obligation or guilt. It's about showing up, consistently and without conditions. It's about love that doesn't require payment plans or shopping lists. It's about being wanted for who you are, not what you can provide. Dad gave me all of that, and in his absence, I've learned to give it to myself. That's his greatest gift to me, the knowledge that I am worthy of unconditional love, even if I have to be the one to provide it. As I close the curtains against the evening sky, I think about the photos on my phone, not the ones of Mom's Italian vacation, which I've long since deleted, but the ones of Dad and me through the years. His proud smile at my graduation. Our last Christmas together, both of us wearing ridiculous holiday sweaters he'd insisted on buying. The picture from my first day at the consulting firm when he'd driven across town just to take me out to celebrate. These are the images that matter. These are the memories worth keeping. And tomorrow, I'll wake up in the apartment he left me, surrounded by books he helped me choose and dreams he encouraged me to pursue, grateful for the parent who showed me what real love looks like.